Hi, how are you?
Nice. You got another great beard in the show today. It's good.
Thank you. Yeah, you have an awesome beard. Wow.
This is, yeah, game recognizes game here. Shout out.
So Ben, you're a founding engineer at Plastic Labs, which is a company solving personal identity for the agentic world. And I think you guys are announcing
Yeah.
something today. So why don't we just jump right into that?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So yeah, I joined the company a few months ago and have been working on like our core product, which is yeah, basically that. It's an identity manager, context manager, memory system, kind of an all-in-one product. And today we just launched this thing called Penny for Your Thoughts, which is a new app that uses Honcho to let people do an interview with like an AI context gatherer. That's like it's an interviewer agent, and it uses Honcho to store all that information and synthesize it and make it like well organized. And then other users can pay to query that representation in an attempt to like extract alpha or useful information out of the user representations that Honcho forms. So that I think like just went live like a couple minutes ago at pennyforyourthoughts.ai. Yeah.
All right. So conceptually, this is interesting to me. The idea that, I guess it's tapping into a few areas here. One is micropayments. The other is sort of the idea that micropayments maybe don't work for human beings, but will absolutely thrive in sort of an agentic world. Can you maybe unpack some of the tech, I guess, that's underpinning this, that's
Yeah.
enabling it right now?
Yeah. No, I totally forgot to mention like how the payments actually function. So we are using X402 to manage like the user payments to these like query endpoints where the experts live and their knowledge like lives. So Honcho is a server. That's where like the information lives, and then we have routes that are gated by this like very new payment strategy that Coinbase just built. 402 was like it's a very interesting story. It was one of the original HTTP codes. Like 403 forbidden, 200 okay. Like 402 is payment required. So they actually like implemented that and made it real. So now you can like have like an HTTP endpoint that's like a GET request or a POST request or anything, but then you have to make a payment to actually access like the endpoint. So the X42 uses like USDC on base. I think you can use other coins with it too, but we're using USDC. So yeah, our server just like it's actually pretty standard. It's not decentralized or anything. It's a web app, and then after you've like built out one of these user representations, there's just an HTTP endpoint that anybody can hit. So agents can use it. Like it's very compatible with sort of like the MCP server tool calling paradigm. And then you have to have a wallet, make a transaction on base with USDC with the exact cost of the endpoint, which is set by the user. And then you can access the content dynamically with a query.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So if I sign up, I chat with the interview agent, who's gonna want to pay to access the representation of me?
Yeah. So you have to make your representation enticing to others. So we have like, a very simple like discover like scroll bar like ticker on the page. It's like you can look at what other experts like are described as and what they're called. So I think this is going to be a very important aspect of these micropayment architectures. So X402 has like a discoverability layer that they call Bazaar, I think. And we're not using that yet, but I think we probably will because that part is very important, especially if like these are agents calling the endpoints. Humans can like send it to their friends and say, hey, like see, I put some really interesting information in there, like check it out. But if you want like an agent to pay for it, which is sort of the end goal here, you definitely need some sort of programmatic way to find out like where good information lives. So there's a review system that needs to be built. There's like ratings and like rankings that let you actually figure out like what's worth paying for. The example that we keep talking about like in the office is like a travel agent type AI, where you could like burn a ton of tokens, like searching the web and reading like dozens of blogs and like churning through all of the SEO generated slop that exists to like find out what hotel to stay in and what restaurants to go to in like a city you've never been to. Or you can like ask your friend who's been there, right? And that's usually like how humans do it because it's way more efficient. And if you have like an AI travel agent, really they should do the same thing. And especially now, like there's a trend where like, inference providers are starting to actually like seek profit as opposed to like operating at a loss permanently. And so people are starting to actually care about optimizing the context for like AI agents. And I think this is a really good way to optimize it. So rather than spend like dollars on like a deep research thing where you're like crawling the whole internet to find out what hotel to stay at, you pay somebody like 10 cents who's been there, and their like crystallized knowledge is just like right there for you. Yeah.
So I'm curious about your maybe meta thoughts on microtransactions, because I think I would put microtransactions into a bucket of like they seem like a really great idea in a specific way, but when you get into like the general dynamics of how the sort of economics on the internet have worked, it just doesn't make sense. And the big one there being that we're just kind of used to getting things for free, and free is so much more compelling than even 0.000001 cents.
Yeah.
And I mean, you kind of hinted at your previous answer here, but for most of us who are, I think, using AI, we're paying a subscription fee monthly, and so
Right,
we're not exposed to the token costs. We're not exposed to sort of the underlying expenses that a infra provider would be paying there. So I'm curious, do you think that's going to change, or what might lead to the change where we actually see micropayments really taking off?
I mean, I don't think it's going to change. I don't think that like human users are going to get excited about paying fractions of a cent. It's a friction kind of thing, and like even when you make the UX super smooth, it's still annoying. I think humans do like to think in terms of like subscriptions or like licenses that they buy once and they have forever. So I think this was a big sticking point for me with like X402, because the first thing I thought when I saw like the spec and started using it was like, oh, like this is a pay per query model, and like, yeah, people don't want that. But it makes a lot more sense for agents, and it makes a lot of sense to have like a human pay a subscription or like own outright like some asset and then give it over to their agent and be like, you go pay per query and you be prudent and make the right microtransactions. I think one of the reasons it's like that is because like the human psychology is like very, no matter how little the cost is, like there's that like opportunity cost feeling of like, oh, am I like buying the right thing? But if you let the agent make that decision, like it's a lot easier. And if the numbers are small, like people, I think will be very comfortable doing that. So like if you fund your travel agent with like $5 and you're like, use this $5 to like go plan the trip. And then the options for the agent, I also like in the long run, like agents managing their own token usage, because that is the most expensive thing right now. So you can spend $5 on like a single query, a single question, if the agent is like calling a lot of tools and looping. So you say, manage your own costs, use this $5 prudently. It can potentially include dozens or hundreds of microtransactions along the way if that's what you deem worthwhile. So I think that's the big test for like X402 and other such agent focused micropayments.
How are you guys thinking about bootstrapping the network here? Because obviously, in a world where you have millions of, identity representations for real people, that's very valuable to the other side. And if there are a bunch of people wanting to pay to access my representation, that's valuable for me. But obviously, when neither of those sides exist, it's tough to bootstrap the network. So curious how you think about that.
Yeah. I mean, we have like a good like company culture of like doing like demos that like are not necessarily meant to like, be anything that's becomes like the enterprise itself, like, right? Like our product is like the memory layer underlying this, and the research that we do to make that better. So for us, like we're in the very, privileged position to be able to just like build cool stuff on top of that and just give it away and be like, hey, like try this, you know? So for us, it's really about like getting better at building the underlying representations, and then somebody else can use that tool to build whatever product they can imagine. And this is just meant to like inspire people for that.
So I'm curious what drew you to Plastic Labs as a company. Obviously, talent in the AI space is a hot commodity. Assuming you could go work in many places. Why invest your heartbeats in this problem area?
Yeah, well, I think memory is very, very interesting. So yeah, two reasons. One, like focusing on memory, I think is great because one, like all of the existing like infrastructure for it is very immature. So it's like very easy to suddenly be state of the art. And then, you know, personally, like I like building like from 0 to 1, like the very, very early stage. So like, you know, I'd rather, you know, work somewhere where like, you know, you get to actually like build the whole system than, you know, be a cog in a very large machine, right? So yeah, we were like building a memory product from 0, which is like really, really awesome.
I think it's probably important to put a fine point on why owning your own memory in this AI world is important. Can you make that case for us?
Yeah, well, I think that's like very amenable to the crypto mindset, because like the default track right now is that ChatGPT just owns your entire memory and owns your life. That's like the default course that we are on. I'm very, you know, concerned about that because basically what that'll look like is like you'll have ChatGPT, it'll get a critical mass of like people's memories. Obviously, they use that data for, you know, additional training and fine tuning. But what's worse is then it becomes like, okay, sign in with this, and then other websites and other products that use AI are going to be forced to integrate with this monolith because that's where the network effects are. And I think we'll reach, this is a very popular talking point. I think a lot of people have reached this conclusion, but like we'll very quickly reach a point where if you go and use a new agent that somebody built, like some startup, and it doesn't already know everything about you, you're gonna not enjoy it as a product because there are other products that do know everything about you because they're integrated in this like memory system. If that memory system is like owned by a single company, it could definitely get stifling. So we're trying to build like an open memory layer, a way for people to get that advantage of like, oh, this product already knows what it needs to know about me, but without being like basically a stifling thing. So ultimately a protocol for that process.
I mean, what do you think needs to happen for the kind of open version of this to win? I think everything we've seen in tech in the last 20 years would suggest that it's probably not going to go in that direction. So curious where your kind of optimistic view on this lies.
Yeah. I mean, it's an uphill battle. I think there are some advantages in AI to like not going with a single provider. I mean, there's a couple things that make it easier than like a social media platform, for instance. One is like the big providers like do shoot themselves in the foot in some ways. They're very, very slow to like integrate the cutting edge in terms of integrations. So like whether it's like the latest like MCP tools or even like you see memory being rolled out as a feature on the big chat apps, those are not the leading edge of like good memory, and they're not the leading edge of like good tool calling. And then they do things like, you know, rug their users by making models no longer available, stuff like that, hidden price hikes. So there's some like things that we can, you know, we as the people building more decentralized stuff can take advantage of there. I think also as time goes on and inference providers look to be profitable and like basically charge more for things that are loss leaders now, it becomes more economically viable to like find different providers that are not the company that made the model, running things locally. The local open source models are at most like a year behind. And so as time goes on and those become like closer and closer to basically AGI, it would be very viable to have like users plugging in their own models to things. Like, you know, I don't think that's even particularly like contrarian. At which point, of course, like having something that you can plug in without like being a subscriber to this like big platform is, you know, advantageous.
I mean, every time I talk with ChatGPT, I feel myself being pulled more and more into their web, and yet many times it feels very. I think we're going to start to figure out what things we want to share with certain tools and what things we don't want to share with certain tools. And I think there's many parts of my workflow that feel very awkward putting into ChatGPT versus hopefully something that I have a lot more control over and longevity from. So, and I guess we also see so much shifting. You know, these front ends are moving to whatever the best model is, frankly. And but I still think that owning that interface is just such a. I mean, it's a shortcut on my home screen here on my phone. And I mean, maybe let's start a last question. This is, probably more of an opinion here than something you have deep insight in, but what the hell's Apple doing with AI, and what do you think they might do? Because they clearly, they are like one of the big aggregators out there. They own the most popular platform for mobile devices, the most valuable one for sure. They seem to have skipped this, and maybe some of the latest AI hype and sort of cooling off has proven them right.
Yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea what they're doing. It's very interesting. It does act as sort of a counterpoint to what other big companies like Google are doing. Yeah, I don't know, but it makes me happy because I actually see like random vibe coded products that like are GPT wrappers or Gemini Flash image wrappers like go viral and get like real traction because because the huge like gatekeepers are not really on the ball or they don't want to be. I don't know. But because of it, small companies actually can just like build really cool AI tools and get users right away. So
hey, maybe they've learned their lesson from the App Store era that you actually need to serve builders, and if you do that, they'll build cool shit that will actually grow your install base.
Yeah,
maybe. And if you don't take 30% of everything, maybe it'll be even more.
Absolutely.
All right, Ben. I mean, let's give people. So if people want to go play around with Penny for Your Thoughts, I'm assuming they can go do that right now. Where can they go do that?
Yeah, it's pennyforyourthoughts.ai. I think, Plastic Labs is like got a tweet and maybe like a pinned tweet, and our website plasticlabs.ai probably has a link to it and stuff. I just like wrote a blog post about it and put it up there. So all that stuff. Yeah, but check it out.
I'm going to download my memory and you guys can all pay for it, even though I give it away for free here.
Exactly.
Every single day, baby. All right, Ben, thanks for hanging out with us today, man. Look forward to clicking some buttons.
Yeah, thank you.
See you, Ben.